Michael Porter's 5 forces approach is an outward-looking way of thinking about strategy. It starts from a very simple fact. Industries and markets vary very widely in the average profitability of their firms. Therefore, the first step in strategy is to make sure that you're competing in an industry with high rather than low average profitability. High-profit industries are what Porter calls attractive industries. We can see the importance of choosing an attractive industry by looking at these data on the comparative profitability of different industries in the United States. The data on the figure compare just 10 industries, aerospace through to semiconductors. The average industry out of all 42 original industries has an average firm total investors return of 12.8% over the last 10 years, here 2004 back to 1994. That sounds okay, but what is important to Porter's 5 forces approach is how widely the industries vary in terms of average profitability, even over 10 years. At one extreme, there are the highly profitable medical equipment and investment banking industries. Here the fortune corporations are making more than 20% investors' return per year, nearly twice the average for the Fortune 500 as a whole. At the other extreme, there is the airline industry, where the average firm is losing 2.6% per year over the last 10 years. Managers in the US airline industry must sometimes wonder whether they'd have done better just staying in bed every morning. Michael Porter's fundamental point is that in strategy, choosing the right industry makes an enormous difference to your chances of success. In airlines, it is going to be hard to make money. In medical equipment, it's relatively easy. If you're an entrepreneur, you would want to start in an attractive market or industry. If you're a corporate strategist considering diversification options or the possible takeover of another company, you would want to check out the attractiveness of the markets you might thereby be entering. But Michael Porter also offers the 5 forces as a way to understand both how some markets become so very attractive or unattractive and how they might change. According to Michael Porter, the profit potential of markets or industries is determined by the interplay of 5 forces. The figure summarizes these. Porter sees relative bargaining power as key. Thus, the players in an industry, the rivals in Porter's terminology, are in a constant struggle to increase their leverage over both their buyers and their suppliers. It's a sort of arm wrestling match, where the greater power the industry's players or rivals have, the higher the prices they will be able to squeeze from their customers, and the lower the prices they can force on their suppliers. If the players in an industry are powerful and not rivalrous, in other words, they don't try to undercut each other, they should be able to seize a greater share of all the profits available to suppliers, buyers, and themselves. But just having the 3 forces of buyer power, supplier power, and rivalry in your favour is not enough in Porter's analysis. Even if the players are not rivalrous and buyers and suppliers are relatively weak, 2 other forces can spoil the situation: the threat of new entrants and the threat of substitutes. It's important in a good industry to have high barriers to entry. If lots of new players can enter the industry, they're going to share the profits and increase rivalry by undercutting existing players. Barriers to entry are a bit like bouncers at a nightclub. The tougher the bouncers, the better things are for those already inside. It is important also not to have easy substitutes for the industry's own products. If you have low rivalry inside the industry, high barriers to entry and power over both suppliers and buyers, it would still be risky to push up prices and hence profits, because buyers could easily switch to substitute products. Substitutes, by the way, are not just other suppliers inside the industry, but suppliers of alternative products that could basically satisfy the same need. Thus, a substitute to television programming or films is computer games. A substitute to aluminium cans is plastic or paper packaging. It's useful to distinguish between rivals in your own industry and substitutes from other industries, because it helps you pay attention to threats from beyond your own territory. You can see how the 5 forces work by thinking about the airline industry again. Part of the reason why it is so unprofitable is because it is so rivalrous. There are many players who tend to compete mainly by lowering prices. It's very hard to differentiate economy travel. The planes are the same, the seats are the same. Another force is the power of buyers. Nowadays, thanks to the internet, it is easy to compare prices and simply go for the lowest. There are also powerful middlemen like Expedia and lastminute.com who bulk buy tickets and pass on the savings to consumers. The supplier side is even worse. There are only two main manufacturers of aircraft, Boeing and Airbus. If you want an aircraft, ultimately you have to go to one of them, and they know it. The threat of entry is high too. Airports are always offering incentives to encourage more airlines to fly more routes from their particular location. Finally, except for very long distance, there are plenty of substitutes: trains, cars and ferries. For business, there's video conferencing. The point about working out the five forces in an industry is not just to understand why it is as attractive or as unattractive as it is. The point is to identify what has to change if the industry's profitability is going to change too. With regard to buyer power, the airlines are going to have to find better ways of differentiating, so that competition is not only about who has the lowest price. They will also have to sell more directly to customers, cutting out powerful middlemen. On the supplier side, they're going to have to find ways of increasing their power against the two dominant aircraft manufacturers, perhaps by encouraging new aircraft manufacturers such as Embraer of Brazil and Bombardier of Canada. To compete against substitute modes of transport like trains, they will have to improve their reliability and check-in procedures so that total journey times fall. With regard to new entrants, they will have to find ways of discouraging airports and others to let in new players. Finally, with regard to rivalry, they will have to curb their tendency to undercutting each other on price. Here, forming more alliances or perhaps letting the stronger players take over the weaker ones will help enforce more price discipline. In other words, Porter's five forces analysis doesn't just explain why an industry like airlines is less profitable than others. It helps tell you what has to change before things get better. Porter isn't just about analysis. He is setting a strategic agenda that, in the case of the airline industry, might include more product differentiation, new distribution strategies, better operations management, and mergers and acquisitions. Clearly, this isn't a silver bullet approach. The five forces tell us that strategic problems have many aspects. You have to deal with all the forces, not just one, two, or three. If you sort out buyers, suppliers, and substitutes, for example, but still leave low barriers to entry, there will be new entrants who will profit from all your efforts. In sum, Porter's five forces are a powerful place to start in strategy. They help tell you which industries or markets to invest in. They can set a strategic agenda about what you and your rivals need to do to make your industry better. Finally, they remind you that there are not likely to be many easy solutions out there. You should pay attention to all the five forces, not just one issue at a time.